All right. First and foremost, give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. That belongs to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone who rule well and who was worthy to be counted for double honors. Peace and salutations to you brothers out there pushing this truth wholeheartedly and sincerely and for love of the gospel. It's a brother Gabaria from the Indiana camp coming back at you again with another sit down. And seen this video on social media, and it had me thinking, and it's actually you can actually answer this by scripture. All right, so we're gonna watch the video and we're gonna get straight into it afterwards.
The biggest question I ask myself all the time is, if I was born again, a different person, would I think the same way that I think right now? Would I have the mental capacity to be who I am? And I say that because I always wonder, like, if I was somebody else, would I be like one of these murderers, or would I be one of these just crazy people out here committing crazy crimes and just like crackheads? Would I be that way? I don't know if I would have the mental fortitude. I feel like I would be the same person I am now because I'm just so mentally locked in, like, who I am. Does that make sense? Like those kids that grow up and ex their parents, you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine being that guy, like that person that did that. I don't know.
So, as you see the guy in the video, he was basically questioning if he was to come back. And basically what he was getting into is just basically reincarnation. All right. So what he was saying, if he was somebody else if he was somebody else, will he still think the same and act the same? And according to the scriptures, yes, that's why you have a thing called history repeating itself, because you have the spirit that's in you can't change. Yeah, your flesh might be able to change. Yeah, you might look different. You might come back looking different in each different flesh, but that spirit that's inside you, the spirit that the Lord created to be you, because that's who you truly are. You're your spirit. That person who you truly are, that doesn't change. All right. That's why you have scriptures, which I'm gonna get into it right now. Matter of fact, you had one scripture in the book of Matthews, where Yahweh Shah says, who does the people say I am? All right. Let me try to see, can I get it? And based off his actions, based off the things that he were doing, people knew that he had to be, here it is right here. This is Matthew chapter 16 and verse 13. It says, and when Yahushua came unto the coast of Caesarea Philippi, it says he asked his disciples, saying, whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? In verse 14, it says, and they say, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some say Elias, some say Jeremiah, or one of the prophets. See? So basically, based off the things that Yahweh Shah, who this world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, based off his actions and based off the things that he were doing, people expect that he had to be one of these prophets back in the reincarnation. Because why? Because they were the same way back when when you read the book, when you read what Elijah, Jeremiah, Isaiah, what the prophets went through, and you compare, like, well, dang, that kind of sounds like this person. That kind of sounds. And back then, reincarnation wasn't a far-fetched thing neither. People understood reincarnation. People was actually looking forward to it. People were looking forward to reincarnation. And it wasn't like a arbitrary thing now where people say, oh, reincarnation, it may. Now you think of reincarnation, you think of the Hindu reincarnation, you come back as an ant or a blade of grass or some shit like that, But really, to be honest, scriptural reincarnation is where you come back as in a different flesh, but your spirit is still intact. All right. So, for example, you might come back looking like an Edomite. You might come back looking like a so-called white man, but the spirit that's in you, that's an Israelite spirit. So guess what? You're going to stand out. Even though you might look like a so-called white man, or you might look like a so-called Chinese man, or you might look like a so-called African man, that spirit that's in you is an Israelite. All right. And that's what we go off of, man. All right. We go off the spirit. That's why the Lord said we're not supposed to judge on the outward appearance. That's why every Israelite's not gonna look like fucking Denzel Washington, or Morgan Freeman. All right. Some Israelites are gonna come up looking different, but it's the spirit that's in them that's gonna bear witness that they're an Israelite. All right. Not to even go deeper in that, the spirit that's in you, depending on what the Lord had that spirit to do, is what you're gonna constantly be doing. The scripture says what? Let me go ahead and grab it right quick. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 32. It says, and the spirits of the prophets are subject to the prophets. See, and what's that talking about is basically saying that the spirit, if you were prophets in the old past, if you was prophets in the ancient world, if you was anytime that you were a prophet, the Lord deemed you to be a prophet, then guess what? It doesn't matter what flesh you come in. You're gonna always be a prophet. All right, that spirit that's in you, the urge, the eagerness, the yearning to prophesy, to be a prophet of the Lord. Doesn't matter what you look like. That's always going to be your calling. All right. Just like the same way as men of war, just like politicians. Everybody has the spirit. The Lord created each spirit to be a unique way. All right. Best believe LeBron James, fucking Michael Jordan, all of them. Best believe they were probably entertainers back in their previous life, man. They probably was good at a skill, good at a fraction, and probably was entertainers, the Caesars. Matter of fact, it's in the scriptures. It's in the Apocrypha. I'm not gonna get it right now, but I'm gonna just quote it. It's in the Apocrypha that basically says that that goes into the three Caesars, the three heads, starting with Julius Caesar. I forgot the other two at the moment, but they were basically coming back. And who did they come back as? They came back as Vespasius, Titus, and Domitius. But they came back in that ruler class mindset. Because why? Because they were already the three Caesars at the beginning. You see. So basically, the question he was asking, will he still be himself if he looked it different, or if he was in a different body or whatever? And the answer is to that is yes. All right. Best believe if you matter of fact, they said no, that's what I want to get. I want to read this. Like I'm kind of everywhere right now. Damn, I just lost it that fast. Slakia. There's a scripture I wanted to grab. It says, oh, that's what it is. The Wadi Al-Bashir. This is Daniel chapter 12, verse 13. It says, but go thy way. It says, but go thy way till the end be, for thou shalt rest and stand in thy lot at the end of days. See? And it's basically, it was the Lord commanding Daniel to say, what, go thy way. It says, and wait until the end days, which we're in the end days now, and you shall stand in your lot. Your lot is basically your job. All right. Let's look up the word lot if we can. Yep, it says lot, pebble, systematically making decisions. Portion says things assigned by casting lots. Recommends retribution. Let's look up what the Geneva Bible says. It says the angel warned the prophet patiently to wait until the end appointed comes, significantly that he should depart from this life and arise again, which the elect, it says with the elect, when Yahweh had significantly humbled and purged his church, which is on, is on point, But it says what? The angel warned the prophet, who the prophet being Daniel, to wait until the Lord appointed comes, significantly that he should depart from this life. See, that Daniel is what he's going to die in this flesh. It says, but what? It says when God had significantly humbled and purged his, oh, it's like I skipped the word, and rise again with the elect. See, and right now Daniel is preaching. Daniel is teaching now. And when the Lord comes back and destroys this place, guess what? Daniel, you're gonna see get redeemed. All right, but guess what? He's gonna be in the stead that Daniel was when he was Daniel. Even though he's not how can I say being called Daniel now. He might be called any of the brothers. We don't know who Daniel is. We don't know who Jeremiah might be. We don't know who Isaiah, or Nahum or Nehemiah. We don't know who these men are, but we understand that they're back today. The book of Second Ezra talks about that. The Lord said He should give us leaders. What Jeremiah, Isaiah, Peter, Paul, John, Luke, Matthew. All these. The Lord is setting up leaders. Which I'm gonna get that, but also I'm gonna get this one in the book of Psalms. But basically, I want to finish off this point that the Geneva Study Bible says that it says what? It says he should depart from this life. So basically, what? He's gonna die. You're gonna die, the way you die in this flesh. But what? And rise again with the elect. So in the elect are now, man. What the elect are doing right now is teaching. All right, just like they did back in the previous time. The Lord called his elect to do that same thing now, because why? The Lord embedded into their spirit. All right. They have no choice but to prophesy, because the Lord put that into their spirit for them to do. It doesn't matter what they come back, what they look like, your spirit is subject to what your spirit's to do. That's why the scripture says what? Matter of fact, before I grab the Psalms, let me grab that right quick. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 4. It says, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith, right? And who is that talking about? It's talking about Esau Edom, man. It says what? His soul, his inner being, the person who makes him who he is, that's not lifted up right. Because guess what? That Edomite can come back looking like any of the other nations. If that spirit goes back to an Edomite spirit, then guess what? He's going to have, it's not going to be an upright spirit. It's not going to be a righteous spirit. It doesn't matter who you look like. That's why you got these people going out and saying that, that was a black man that did. That's how it was a black man. But you go back and you look through what's it called? You look through his genealogy, his gene, and you seen that what his mother, or his great grandmother, was probably raped by her master, and she kept the child, and she ran into Chicago, and then the child grew and married another black woman, and then that man married another black woman, and so forth and so forth. And then you find out that, oh man, this dude actually goes back to an Edomite. This guy goes back into Edomite bloodline. So yeah, the spirit that's in this is going to be an Edomite spirit, and that's another thing too. Yeah, I said that. I said that it doesn't matter what you look like, or it doesn't matter what your flesh is. If the spirit that's in you, it has to be an Israelite, but also the flesh has to be an Israelite flesh too. Basically saying that two Edomites can't have an Israelite baby. Basically, if those Edomites get together and have a baby, it can't have an Israelite soul in it. The Israelite spirit is gonna dwell in an Israelite body. It ain't gonna be no no such thing as two Edomites getting together, and that unless that father has an Israelite ancestor. That's the only way that can actually possibly happen. But ain't no heathens getting together and having an Israelite baby. Hey, I don't care what, even if that baby's grow up and join the church and be this and be that and be different, and if it truly is, it goes back to what I said. And if it truly is where he is actually an Israelite and he has soul and he's just different from his parents, then hey, listen, either mom was messing around with somebody else, or his dad actually goes back to Israelite gene, But But when I said it doesn't matter how you look, whether you look like this or whether you look like that, I was basically talking about your actual facial features, you know, how you actually look, you know. Let me get this in the book of Psalms. Or is it Job? I think it's Job. Yep, it's Job. Slakia. This is Job chapter 19 and verse 25. It's for I know that my Redeemer liveth, that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin's worm destroy this body, yet in my flesh I shall see Yahweh. See? So what? Job understood that reincarnation was a thing. And then he said that this body is going to decay, it's going to die, you know, from what? Worms destroying this body. From basically, when do worms get in your body? When you're dead, you know, when you go back into the earth. But he said what? But yet in his flesh he shall see God. What he's talking about in his new flesh that he's going to get when the time has come, you know. Verse 27 says, "Whom I shall see for myself, and my eyes shall behold, and not another. Though my rents be consumed within me," you know, and his rents basically talking about his stomach, you know. Let's see, yep, kidneys, physical organs, you know, his intestines and all that. Even though that's going to be consumed, even though that's going to die away, but eventually, what he's going to get? Job understood that he was going to get a new flesh, all right, and then he was going to get a new body that he's going to be able to praise Yahweh B'Shem Yashai, that he's going to be able to teach in. You know, just like it says in Daniel, that what? He's going to stand in his lot. He's going to stand in his position to be teaching, to be a prophet. And like we said, like we read in the book of Corinthians, it says what? The spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets. So all these men that we read about in the scriptures, you know, they're all coming back today. And those are the men that you see on the street corners making these videos like I'm making now, you know, praising Yahweh B'Shem Yahshua all the way until what? Until the Redeemer comes. Until the Redeemer comes and delivers them, you know. So it doesn't matter what the men looked like. It doesn't matter what they, who they came, or how was their upbringing. You know, who was in their life, whether they was raised by their mama, whether it was raised by their daddy, whether it was raised by their grandchildren, whether they're homeless. Doesn't matter any of their upbringing. That spirit that's in them is yearning for a specific purpose. All right, and that's the whole point of this video, showing you that. That the answer to the guy's question, he's saying, am I still going to be who I am? Am I still going to act the way I'm acting if I was a different person? And the answer is yes, you will, you know, because whatever the Lord has your spirit to do, that's what's going to do. I see that you was the guy was in the army. Hey, in the previous lifetime, listen, you could have been a man of war, you know. Now, I don't know if you're an Israelite now, you look like an Israelite, but I mean, if you're an Israelite, then guess what? You could have been a mighty man. You know, you could have been a Benjamite or one of the warrior nations. You know, you could have been a mighty man of war. You know, you could have you know, I don't know exactly who the guy was, but you know, if he was in the army now, it shows that he's what is it? He has a calling for war, for battle. You know, and he probably doesn't even know why he wanted to join, but you know, he's in it. He's like, I don't know why I wanted to join. I'm just in it. You know, I guess I'm doing it for money. I'm doing it for this. You know, despite your reason for it, you're in it. You know, your spirit called you to that, you know. So it's a good likely chance that back in your previous times that you were also a man of war, you know. So just like how the spirit of the prophets are subject to the prophets, just like all these nutcases out here, and the people that you see that's doing their day-to-day living, you know. If you were a murderer, if you were a murderer and you just delight in, I'm talking about real. I'm not talking about Esau standard murder, because what, you can fucking hit somebody with your car and they'll call a manslaughter. And, oh, you murdered that person. Like, yeah, but it was accidental. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the real psychopaths, the one that got demons on them. You know, the real psychopaths out here that murder for fun, that love it. You know, that rejoices in it. You know, those guys always been like that. You know, that's what the Lord had them basically to be. You know, best believe, and I always say this, man, best believe Barabbas is back today. You know, if you're not already incarcerated but best believe Barabbas is back. You know, and best believe he's still a murderer. You know. That spirit that's in Barabbas, the Lord put that upon him, you know. He ain't gonna be able to escape that until he get into the kingdom, you know, because Barabbas is an Israelite, but he ain't be able to escape that until he get into the kingdom, you know, until the Lord actually cleanse him from that, you know. And that's when the Lord is literally gonna be cleansing a lot of our people from the filthy and abominations that they've been doing, you know. He's gonna cleanse their spirit, you know. So it's gonna be their inner person. When they get into the kingdom, they're gonna acknowledge everything that they did. Yeah, that was wrong. That was off. I was tripping, you know. But that's all I had, you know. Lord willing, I hope this video was edifying.